Welcome back, Samurais. Welcome back to the dojo. I think it's been a while since we did our last class. I had been busy with other things. But in any case, we're back, right? And on this class, lesson 22, I believe, hopefully I get it right this time, we will be looking at uh, how to generate SQL code, SQL code, by using R. So at this point, you've generated a lot of knowledge on how to use R, and you should be able to use this as a way to generate SQL code and help you with that, right? So that's the topic that we will be covering today. This is pretty exciting because sometimes you get very good at, let's say, R, but once you want to transition into SQL, it might be a little bit strange how things work over there. At least that has been my experience. I'm not someone who deeply enjoys working with SQL, but sometimes we have to, right? And if we can somehow use our knowledge in R to bridge that gap, then that's great, right? So that's basically what we are going to be doing today. Now, with that said, let's get to it, right? Let's get to it. Oh, look, I have an F there. So I already have created a new script, right? So I'll be making this big, and let's start quickly coding. So we will be using several libraries. Now, you might be thinking like, hey, how can we work and generate SQL queries? There's some steps that you need to take. You can also test whether those queries actually work, and for that we're going to be touching on some very interesting topics today. How long will this lesson take? Maybe it's going to take around 30 minutes, worst case 1 hour. You know that, guys, that I try to keep things under hopefully 45 minutes or an hour. With that said, let's start with the libraries that you will be using. If at any point you don't have any of these libraries, please remember you can install them by typing here, right? And then also check install dependencies, install the libraries. I have them already installed, so I'll just be loading them. Oops. Library dbi. This, it's basically an interface for databases between R and relational database management systems. So you will need this one. Next, I'll be using RSQ Lite because we'll be generating a database that is based on that. Then DB Clear, which is like Dippler but for databases. So basically all that you know from Dippler, most of the time it applies also to DB Clear. So it's pretty cool. Then of course standard Dippler, because we might want to perform some changes before we create that table in our small database. And I'll be loading Tibble. Now you can also probably load the tidyverse, and you'll get lots of these things loaded in. I just wanted to show you what are the libraries that we will be using for this particular tutorial. Now, of course, we should be commenting our code. So let's say loading libraries. Then we'll be moving to, let's call it example. Yeah, example or sample 1. Let's see if we can. We'll have to probably do sample codes. Now, the first thing we need to do, like I said, is to generate a connection to a database, right? Now you'll be thinking like, well, Victor, I don't have a database. How can I do that? Well, we're going to be creating one right here in our computer. So for that, we'll call this con, which is for connection. Then we'll call the, actually, let me first load the libraries, because otherwise we won't be, there we go. I think everything's loading. DB connect. See, create a connection to a database management system. So DB connect, we'll be calling RSQ Lite, and then SQ Lite, like this. And important is that we will say that this is in memory, like this. Now I won't execute the code just yet, so please bear with me. So this is let's call it in memory database. Next we'll add a data frame, and my go-to data frame, because everyone has it, is empty cars. So we'll be using empty cars, and empty cars, you know, it comes with row names with the names of the cars. I've never really liked that, so same as always, we'll be changing that to a variable called car. Let's see if we can at least load this one. Let's check it. Yep, there we go. So we're good. So far so good. So let's say here this is preparing empty cars data. Then let's see, what should we do next? We should copy data to database. So let's actually create this one already. Okay, so we have here formal class, SQL, lots of stuff. You can look into the details. I won't be going into all the details, but believe me, we already have something that is kind of working, right? So we're gonna be copying our empty cars data into that database. So copy data to database. We'll use copy to con is our connection. Then we will be copying our data frame. We call this empty cars. We'll choose temporary equal false. Now that should probably have it done, and then we're going to create a table reference so that we can work with that table in basically R. So creating table reference. We'll call it empty cars DB, and this will be basically a table that is df. Actually, no, sorry. It will be a table that is in con, right? And the name is empty cars. Okay, so there we have it. It says lazy query, etc. Okay, so now I believe we have our table working. Here we have, let's see. Yeah, you see, it's already, we have the variables, we have our table here. So everything seems to be working, right? So let's move on to doing some analysis, right? So let's call this can we call it generating or creating analysis? Let's call it. And what I will be doing here is let's call this query, because that's what we want to generate in the end. And this will be interacting with empty cars database, of course. Then we can use a pipeline, a pipe like we've always had until this point. And then I'll be grouping, let's say, by cylinder. Let's continue moving. Let's do a summarize for just for the fun of it, where n is equal to n. I don't know, some stuff in here. Then this placement mean is equal to mean For displacement, remember to use na.rm equal true. Let's continue with disp median. Then it's the same, na.rm equal true. Let's add two more. Let's go for HP. Now you notice that I haven't really been looking into all the details for empty cars, because I think you should be kind of very familiar with this particular data set by this point, and I will not be spending time on that. If you are joining just randomly at lesson 22 and you haven't seen any of the other lessons, you might want to go back, or familiarize yourself with this particular data frame. Then we'll do the same here. Equal true. Now that should probably have the query done. Now I want to show several examples of this, so let's create a few more examples, right? I created this one, then let's create another example that is, and I'll name all of them query. No, actually, let's name it separately. Query 2, empty cars, db, pipe. Let's do a filter, mpg greater than 20. Then a select, just so that you can see how you can basically work with the same way you've been working so far to generate some very cool SQL code. And then finally we'll do an arrange by descending mpg. Okay, we have the second one here, we have this one here, this one here. Okay, let's do one more. Query 3. Hopefully we don't run into any issues. Cars db, select, let's select the car, pg, cylinder, displacement, then group by cylinder, and slice by minimum of mpg, and then ungroup. Okay, so we should have already like 3 different queries that we will be able to generate SQL from. Creating analysis, yeah, let's call it like that. I'm not sure if it's the best name, but well, it is what it is for now. Now we have the queries already in here, or well, they don't seem like queries, they seem like standard Dippler code, but there's a lot of magic that will be happening, and for that we will be checking the results of let's rename these to queries. Checking results of queries. And to check the results, let's call this result 1. And what we'll be using is query 1. And we will be using something called collect. And collect, let's see if we can see what collect does, because I feel like, yeah, it force computation of a database query, basically. So with this, we will force this query to be executed and the results collected into result 1. Now, let's copy this a couple more times and just change this to 2, 3, 3, and 2. Okay, now let's see if this works. Hopefully we don't get any sort of strange error occurring. If you see some kind of warning, you can probably by this, oh, query not found, because I haven't generated it. Not find group, oops, here it's group by, sorry. Group by. There we go. Query 2, query 3. Then let's see result. Let's see where error occurred. Okay, we have some sort of error here. So you see, it's make sure to properly spell things. Don't be like me. Okay, there we go. Now it's all good, and then we can check the results. So let's see. The first one, result 1, is supposed to be grouping things by cylinder and then summarizing things and having these new uh, columns created, right? So we have n, the sample or the number of vehicles in there, then the displacement mean, displacement median, HP mean, and HP median. So that worked pretty well. Then result 2, we have here MPG cylinders and gear, right, for MPG greater than 20. Maybe we want to, let's include car here, because otherwise it's kind of weird. There we go. Yep. And then finally we have result 3. And result 3 is basically selecting all of this grouping by cylinder, slicing the minimum MPG. So we should see a very short table with the minimum of the MPG from each group. Now, is it true? Well, let's check, I guess. So if we look at DF and look at displacement and then MPG, yeah, 21.4 is the minimum for this one, and it's exactly what we have here, the Volvo 142E. Okay, so up until now we still haven't seen any of that SQL code, but trust me, we are at this point. R is doing some magic in the background where you're actually querying this database that we created here. Now, how can we see that code? And here, I'll show you how. View SQL code generated. And there's two ways of showing it. You can use show query, or you can also use SQL render. Right? Query 1, query 1. And for the rest, I think I'll just use the show query. What is the difference? The difference is in how it shows. For example, you have show query. It's a pretty print, I think. It has some nice colors. Otherwise, it's just rendered how it would go into the database, right? So these are the two functions that you can use to generate or show that SQL code that was generated through your Dippler code. Now let's add in here for show query. It's at 2 and 3. Actually, let me cut this one. Yeah, there we go. So we click this, and that's basically the SQL code that corresponds to our analysis. And then this query 3, which is a little bit more complicated with slice min and on some grouping there, right, where you can do some pretty cool thing. So that's how basically you can generate SQL code. Now we're still not done yet with this example. I think I would like to cover um, one more example, right, in which we are basically um, what happens if we want to join some tables or something like this, right? So how would I be able to generate that code? So example or sample 2 would be looking into that particular scenario. Now for that scenario, I'll be generating a new, let's say, adding some tables to that connection, right? But I'll be generating some data frames first. So let's call this df1 so that it doesn't conflict with df. And then I'll use a data frame structure. I know we could also use a table. That's up to you. ID to 5. Then we will have some names here. And our names will be Alice, Bob, Charlie, Jesus, and Eve. Okay. Yeah. Let's execute this code, and we should have a data frame now with those things. Okay, that's great. Now let's assume that we'll be having another table in this in our database, right? That contains also some information. It contains an ID, but this one contains not all of them. It contains 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 6 for some reason. And it also contains, let's say, the age. So this other table contains the ID of users, right? And the age, their age. See, let's say it's 25, well, 25, 30, 35, 40, and 28. df2. Okay, we have here. So we have our ID. So we can see that the main key for these two tables is basically ID, right? That's what we can use to join things. Now, we need to copy that data again to our existing database, right? So we'll be doing that. So let's write here copy data to the SQLite database. And with that, let's use copy 2, which is the same thing we used here, right? And then our connection is con df1. We'll call this df1. Our table, we'll call it df1. Temporary equal false. And then we'll add exactly the same thing, but for our second table. So I'll just copy that in order to expedite and not use too much of your time. So let's see. We should have this hopefully in here. Where do we, is it con? No, not yet. Trying to see if I can check. Let's see. Well, okay. Yeah, I think it's okay. I just wanted to check something in here. No, it's okay. Let's continue. We'll get back to it if we can. We're actually let's see. I just want to see if we actually. Yeah, I think there's a function we can use for this. Let's see. I think DB list tables con. Ah, there we have. Right. Okay, we have df1, df2, and empty cars, and we have some other stuff in there. But okay, we have it. So in case you want to see the current tables that we have, you can use db list tables connection. Right. So you can use that. Let's say to show existing tables in database. Okay, with that small parenthesis that maybe took way longer than it should have, and sorry about that, let's go back to our work. So now we have two tables here and we want to basically join them, right? So let's call this joined data. And we'll be generate a connection here. Table con, basically what we did last time. df1 because we know that table exists. Then we'll do a left join with another table, which is df2 by, because that's a left join, right? If you remember that from our class a long time ago, can't remember the lesson it was, but it was somewhere in the first probably 10 lessons or something like this, I think, hopefully. We'll be doing here the table left join, and then we will lastly be doing a mutate just to total with the total age, sum age equal na.rm equal true. Okay, now that we have that, and here, what did we call this? Did we call it creating table references? Creating, yeah, let's call it creating queries. Now I didn't call this query. I called it joined data, but you could have called it query or whatever, right? It's just a location where we'll be doing that. Now, if we want to see the result, we can use collect, right? So we will be doing that. So let's say here king result of query again, and then we'll say result 4 will be basically joined data collect. So let's see. Okay, H. Yeah, okay, this is wrong. So H, it's H. There we go. Result 4. We should have here Eve, as you can remember from our database. It's there's no record 5 in our second table in our database, so that's why it's showing as NA, and then we have the total age. So hopefully 40 plus 30, yeah, that is 130. Yeah, yeah, it is. I was just doing some quick addition there. Sorry for that. Okay, so it seems that our query is working, and now it's time to view the result. So view SQL code generated. And let's type in here show query joined data, and boom, there you go. That's the code that you would have. And with that, I believe that we should basically be done. It was actually pretty short tutorial. Well, let's remember to save our work, right? But with this, we come to the end of these lessons, of this lesson with SQL. Now, there's a lot of other things you can do, right, with these packages. This is just like the tip of the iceberg. So as always, I'll show you how to do some things, but it's just like the beginning, right? You can go much more deeper into this and do many more cool things. So for example, here we had an in computer database, right? But you can also generate a connection to an external database, and you can basically download a little bit of that data, run your analysis, generate some queries on that limited data set, and then you can use this code generated by R to further deploy that into an ETL pipeline or anything that you can think of, right? So that's also a very interesting way in which you can leverage your knowledge of R to help you in other languages, SQL, right? So up until this point, if you started with me from the very first lesson, lesson one, I don't think you know SQL, right? Or SQL. I think no one really knows how to pronounce it. So you probably don't know, right? And now you kind of do. I mean, yes, of course, you might have to learn a little bit more on how to do things with SQL and understand the order of the execution and all these other things like select and from and all this stuff. But that, at least if you were placed in a position where you have to immediately provide some SQL code at work, right? Or if you have to interact with something with SQL and you have no idea, then you can still use your knowledge in R to back you up and help you through that difficult time. With that said, remember to save your work. Oh, by the way, I think once you finish working with the database, you should use something called db disconnect. Yeah, disconnect, close a connection. Right, so let's end with that. Closing to database. Oh, I think I need to provide the name. Con. Yeah, if I run it again, it's gonna tell me that there's already disconnected. Yeah, okay, so we're good. So with that, we can say that our example on how to generate SQL code from R, or using R, is complete. And from here, I'm pretty sure you guys, with everything, guys and girls, with everything you've learned so far, you'll be able to do basically wonders. Now, as always, thank you for following these lessons. If you enjoy the work that I do, please tell your friends, like, subscribe, comment. If you comment, it really helps the YouTube algorithm. And by the way, if you comment, I might send you some greetings at the start of next class. Help me help other people, right? By making the YouTube algorithm show my classes to more people, right? I'm doing this just not for money or anything, but because I really want people to work more efficiently at work and do things that they might thought were not very easy to do. With that said, I think that's it. What will we be learning next time? I don't know. Same as always. I'll try to think of a topic and see what comes up, um, and so that you can be excited for what we will be learning next. If you have any ideas on what you would like to teach me to teach you, please comment on the video. Right, I'll take a look at that and see what I can do. Right, I may or may not know the topic, but we're in it together. With that said, this for sure, now for sure, I want to thank you for your time, and yeah, that's basically it. Class dismissed, and thank you for joining.